Over the years, I have ridden 1,033 different roller coasters, 878 of which were made of steel. I have ridden steel roller coasters in 36 different US states and 14 different countries. This will be a two-part video series counting down the top 50 steel roller coasters I have ridden as of 2020. Remember, this list is my opinion, and everyone will rank rides differently. The things I prioritize most are airtime, pacing, and a great setting. Kicking things off is number 50, the Blue Fire clones at Europa Park and IMG Worlds of Adventure. Mock launch coasters are often criticized for their forceless launches, but Blue Fire actually has a solid launch. But what I love most about the coaster are those incredibly open trains, its extreme re-rideability, and the mix of elements. You have a few okay airtime moments peppered in, but the highlight are those inversions. The first three give great hang time, but the final barrel roll is one of the snappiest inversions out there. You really get whipped through it. Number 49, Copperhead Strike at Carowinds. Unlike Blue Fire, this mock launcher suffers from not one, but two forceless launches. Thankfully, the rest of the ride is an action-packed blitz of great elements. The JoJo roll, two vertical loops, and cutback offer some of the best hang time you can get on any coaster. It's really impressive how long you're suspended upside down on those elements, and those are juxtaposed by a series of snappy airtime hills that try and blast you into the stratosphere. Copperhead Strike is a jack of all trades, succeeding in everything but the launch. Number 48, Flying Aces at Ferrari World. I was admittedly disappointed by this Intamin hyper since I was expecting Skyrush. And I'll pump the brakes. Outside the insane ejector airtime filled drop, this ride does not have the airtime of Skyrush. The only other strong airtime hill is that speed hill. Outside of that, you get some mild floater airtime at best on 2 or 3 of the other hills. The ride's strength is the laterals. The non-inverting loop and several of the transitions violently throw you to the side like the Stengel dive on Skyrush, especially if you're on a wing seat. Number 47, Alpina Blitz at Nigloland. Mach's take on a Megalite is better than the original in my opinion. Alpina Blitz starts off like a mini Intimidator 305 with an ejector airtime filled drop and a low, high-speed turn that always caused me to gray out. That's followed by a series of airtime hills. The first few offer floater airtime, then the S-hills in the middle of the ride offer very abrupt ejector airtime with some laterals mixed in. Last but not least, the final hills offer some flagecta airtime. The ride does admittedly feel slow, but the airtime is no joke. Number 46, Pyrenees at Parque España. One of the best B&M inverts, Pyrenees feels like a supersized Batman the ride. The coaster has an eerily familiar start. You have a forceful drop, a gray-out inducing vertical loop, a whippy 0G roll, and then another forceful vertical loop. You then have a Raptor-esque Cobra roll and a super forceful helix that threads a loop, before a mid-course brake run and one final corkscrew. The only flaw with this coaster is a nasty snap off the mid-course, but the coaster is otherwise glossy smooth. Number 45, Katun at Mirabilandia. Just a smidge better than Pyrenees, Katun is extremely similar except for 2 changes. One, the second vertical loop is replaced by a second corkscrew. 2, the helix is moved to after the brake run. The ride is just as forceful and smooth as Pyrenees, but I think the 2 layout changes slightly improve the coaster's overall pacing, which is why I prefer it. Plus, the first drop and mid-course brake run offer teeny tiny pops of airtime if you're in the back. Number 44, Mindbender at Galaxyland. What an intimidating coaster. The coaster looks super imposing indoors, and the initial plunges are downright wild. Some are perilously steep and demonically twisted, while others are more elongated and offer crazy laterals. But the stars are the 3 insanely forceful vertical loops that are almost guaranteed to cause you to gray out. The end of the ride isn't quite as fast, but it still has an airtime moment mixed in, and a disorienting helix around a series of mirrors. Number 43, Quimera at La Feria de Chapultepec. This is a slightly smaller version of Mindbender, but this one ran faster. Combine that with Mexico City's altitude, and you have what I consider to be the most intense coaster I have ever ridden. The positive Gs in the loops are even more powerful than Mindbender, and the finale, which was intended to be taken at a slower speed, has some unnatural ejector airtime and crazy laterals. I'm glad this coaster was saved by Indiana Beach, and I can't wait to ride it again. Number 42, Montu at Busch Gardens, Tampa. Montu is one of my favorite inverts because it combines the power of Pyrenees and Katun with better theming. Those trenches are a small touch, but they really enhance the sense of speed in the valleys. The element is a bit of a throwaway element, but every other inversion packs a mighty punch, most notably the Batwing. The Gs in that element are incredible, and it's probably my single favorite inversion on any invert. Number 41, Taron at Phantasialand. I was sort of let down by Taron at first, but I've been led to believe it was running slow the day I visited. The coaster was still visually stunning as it wove its way through Klugheim, and there was absolutely no way to memorize this layout. Both launches had some good power to them, and while there weren't too many airtime moments, the ones that were included on the ride had some good airtime. Number 40, Nemesis at Alton Towers. My second favorite invert is extremely unique. I love how Nemesis hugs the terrain, so the ride feels like one giant drop as you're constantly building up more and more speed. And along the way, you're assaulted with positive Gs and snappy inversions. Nemesis is on the shorter side, but outside of one turnaround, the coaster has near perfect pacing, and the visuals really enhance this ride. I love the theming and near misses in the trenches. Number 39, Medusa Steel Coaster at Six Flags Mexico. My least favorite of the steel RMCs, Medusa rides quite a bit differently than their other coasters. Rather than throwing a bunch of small bunny hills at you relentlessly, Medusa is more about inversions and turnarounds. All the inversions are great, and the transitions into these turnarounds are super abrupt, but the airtime just isn't as plentiful as the other RMCs ahead of it on this list. I do have to praise this coaster for its pacing though. It has no dead spots. Number 38, New Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas. The original RMC is still a very strong ride. While it doesn't have the inversions or non-stop pacing of their later coasters, New Texas Giant still has a lot of fantastic elements in the first 2/3 of the ride. I love the sustained ejector airtime of the first drop, second hill, and the speed hill. I also love how snappy the second overbank is with the laterals and airtime combo. The finale does lose a lot of speed and power, but you still get a few airtime moments on that last lap, even if they aren't quite as good as those earlier in the ride. Number 37, Steel Dragon 2000 at Nagashima Spa Land. The world's longest roller coaster is an enjoyable one. It feels like Steel Force in steroids, which is a compliment for me. You get the familiar sustained floater airtime on the outward leg. You then have an elongated turnaround section with a ton of head choppers, and then you have an endless series of bunny hills on the return run with some great airtime. I also really like the B&M trains because they're far more open than their usual Morgan trains. The only reason I have Steel Dragon this low is because it does have a really bad rattle unless you're in the back car, which is the best seat. Unfortunately, what seat you get is luck of the draw like most parks in Japan. Number 36, Leviathan at Canada's Wonderland. The original B&M Giga feels short, but I do like what it offers. B&M Gigas have some of the best drops in the world with their sustained floater airtime, and Leviathan is no different. I also really love the blazing fast speed hill and sustained airtime on the camelbacks. The coaster is super re-rideable and smooth, and it offers a little bit of everything. I just wish there was more to it. Number 35, Superman El Ultimo Escape at Six Flags Mexico. The best ground-up Morgan is the best coaster in Mexico. This coaster is paced far better than the US Morgans. You have an interesting pre-lift section with some quick pops of airtime, but the real fun starts after the lift hill. You have your typically great Morgan drop, but this coaster has a way better turnaround section because you have some powerful airtime moments mixed in with the usual turns. And then the second half also offers some wonderful sustained airtime as long as you aren't trimmed to a halt in the mid-course brake run, which will happen if the park runs 3 trains and stacks them. Number 34, Mako at SeaWorld Orlando. Based on the first half, Mako is probably the second best B&M hyper. The airtime is borderline flagector and sustained for an incredibly long time, most notably on the first Camelback. And at least when I've ridden it, I've never gotten trimmed badly. However, Mako really lets his foot off the gas in the second half. You still have an okay airtime hill and some cool turns, but it pales in comparison to the airtime of the first half. Number 33, Maverick at Cedar Point. Like Copperhead Strike, Maverick is a jack of all trades, except Maverick includes a beyond vertical drop and a launch with some actual force to it. The rest of Maverick's layout is littered with fast-paced turns, strong airtime hills, and decent inversions. And then you also have some wild Stengel dives in the second half that really throw you to the side. Number 32, iSpeed at Mirabilandia. iSpeed feels like the greatest hits of Intamin. You start with one of their forceful LSM launches, you then have an accelerator-esque top hat, that's followed by an ejector airtime filled Camelback like you find in their hypers. You then have an Intimidator 305-esque twist, a Rye of Steel-esque S-hill, and what I believe the old Maverick barrel roll would have felt like. The first barrel roll in iSpeed is one of the wildest inversions in the world. It is taken unbelievably fast. You then cruise through some more great elements, including a second barrel roll, and a few more airtime hills. The one flaw with this coaster is that it has hard restraints, but I learned to lean into the transitions to avoid any neck chopping. Number 31, Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City. The first Mach Extreme Spinning Coaster is a complete package for me. For one, it has excellent theming in the queue. 2, the ride has an excellent location on a hillside. 3, the spinning makes for a really dynamic ride, even if the layout isn't necessarily as intense as Mach's other looping coasters. The first drop is one of my favorites out there. Backwards sustained ejector airtime is exceedingly rare, but Time Traveler delivers it. All the inversions are extremely disorienting, since you're often spinning throughout them. And there are a few other pops of airtime scattered about. The launches are admittedly weak in terms of power, but if you spin during them, they suddenly become quite fun. And fun really is the best way to describe Time Traveler. Number 30, Oziris at Park Asterisk. My personal favorite B&M invert is arguably their most diverse layout. It starts with a super steep, twisting first drop, offering laterals and ejector airtime. Yes, you can get ejector airtime on an invert. If you want positive Gs, look no further than the dive loop, vertical loop, and final helix. If you want floaty elements, look no further than the 2-0 G rolls. And then if you want more airtime, ride Oziris in the back and you have almost a half dozen airtime moments scattered about. Combine that with the fantastic Egyptian theming and the glass smooth ride, and it's not hard to see why this is one of my favorite coasters anywhere. Number 29, Wicked Cyclone at Six Flags New England. My first RMC is still a ton of fun. This coaster has countless ways to get you out of your seat. You have over a dozen ejector airtime filled drops and airtime hills, plus 3 hang time filled inversions. But this coaster has a pacing issue. 1, it's notorious for having a painstakingly slow third lap. 2, the overbanks are mostly throwaway elements, outside of that one outward bank turn, which quite possibly may be my favorite part of the ride. Number 28, Storm Chaser at Kentucky Kingdom. My 2020 rides felt a bit slower than my past rides, but I still really like this coaster. While I do miss having a traditional RMC first drop, usually those first drops are my favorite elements on any RMC. The barrel roll first drop is cool, and every single airtime hill delivers strong ejector airtime. And the barrel roll in the second half of the ride is taken far faster than the other RMCs, so it feels whippy sort of like an old school B&M invert. Number 27, Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom. I think I speak for all coaster enthusiasts that it's downright criminal more hyper GTX coasters haven't been built by chance. The ride is great. It's super smooth and it feels like an RMC in terms of the elements, pacing, and type of ejector airtime. The elements that stand out most to me are the sustained ejector airtime on the first drop and subsequent Camelback, and then I love the crazy finale with 4 of the most abrupt and violent pops of ejector airtime anywhere. Number 26, Joker at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. Considered by many to be the worst RMC, I genuinely like Joker. The first drop in particular stands out, since it offers powerful ejector airtime and lateral simultaneously. And for inversions, I love the sustained hang time on the 0G stall. It's one of my favorite inversions anywhere. The ride's overbanks are throwaway elements, but every single drop and inversion is top notch. So those are my 50th through 26th ranked steel coasters. Check back tomorrow for my top 25 steel coasters, or if you're watching this later, I'll include a link to the next video. What are your thoughts on any of the coasters on this list? I would love to hear what you think down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate if you gave it a like and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canobie Coaster. Thanks for watching.